with anxiety, but more so depression, at any moment you can fall apart. And that can be really scary as you navigate everyday life. Nothing haunts us like things left unsaid.
Words hold so much power. Spoken aloud or put to paper, they give voice to what we think and community to how we feel. But left unsaid, they can burden us like little else.
Middle school is when I really started to feel these things and really not know what they were. It manifested in rage, or I would get so worked up that I would act out or just not want to be around anybody. It's those moments when you're left alone that can be scary, or things can be misleading, or your mind can play tricks on you. Basketball was my safe place. That physical exertion and taking your mind out of the equation, having your mind occupied. I had my singular focus of making it to the NBA.
Timberwolves, Kevin Love.
2012 Olympic gold medal, or 2016 when we won the championship. I thought I could achieve myself out of it.
The Cavaliers are NBA champions. 52 years of torment and anguish has been washed away.
It's exhausting. Like, you have this idea in your brain to just endure, but I continued to hide. I continued to, shut myself off.
Kevin buried his pain, his anxiety, his feelings. But neglected, they only festered. And in November 2017, they invaded his one safe space.
I remember we went through a few plays, there was a timeout. I got to the huddle, and that's when I felt something that I had never felt before. I couldn't catch my breath. I felt like my mind was completely out. I couldn't send oxygen to my brain.
There was like 4 or 5 plays in the game where there was just no emotional energy from him. And it just was like nothing.
Am I having a cardiac episode? Why can't I take a full breath? And why is my heart beating so fast? I really felt like I was gonna die in this moment. I was in a really rough period of my life, and basketball being, kind of the last pillar had fallen. It's like an accumulation. When those things continue to add up, you kind of have it in your mind, well, what's the point? And that can be really, really scary.
Men are tough. Men don't cry. We're taught to be these like impenetrable bubbles. I've played with guys that didn't know how to express themselves. They didn't want to feel vulnerable.
There's a stigma around this type of struggle that you don't get with, say, like a sprained ankle. We only pay attention to the things that are tangible. You're healthy, we got a game, you need to play.
In every person's life, there is a moment where you have everyone's attention. Kevin took that opportunity in that moment to make waves.
On March 6th, 2018, Kevin released a deeply personal essay. Everyone is going through something. For the first time, he opened up in honest, vulnerable terms about being diagnosed with anxiety and depression.
It was not easy going through all that and reliving a lot of moments from my childhood to write this piece, but I knew if you help one kid, it could be absolutely life-changing and groundbreaking for that kid.
When I shared my own story with the congregation, it was kind of overwhelming. I felt as though I had opened floodgates because people were calling me and emailing me and telling me their own stories. And I learned, much like Kevin learned, that that being vulnerable and sharing one's stories connects you to people, and it allows you to help people heal. And that has been so inspiring for me to learn more about the Kevin Love Fund and the work that they do. Like I said, we have two really special people with us tonight. I want to introduce them. Ellie Foster is an advocate for centering creativity and emotional expression in the way that schools approach social emotional learning and trauma-sensitive practices. She's supported this approach as a high school English teacher, as a literacy researcher, as a K through 12 teacher educator, as an instructor with Denver Rights, and as an activist for youth experiencing homelessness through an organization called Attention Homes. Ellie holds a Master's of Science degree in Educational Psychology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a PhD in Literacy Education from the University of Colorado at Boulder. And Ellie's doctoral research has explored centering emotion and research-based writing. She's a research associate in the School of Education at the University of Colorado. We also have with us Sarah Hahn. Sarah holds a master's degree from Vanderbilt University in Human Development Studies, in addition to a master's degree from Pepperdine University in Education. After teaching in both public and private schools in Los Angeles, Sarah witnessed the disparity in education across her student population firsthand. And she was inspired to create a program that would provide comprehensive support to students from underserved communities. Sarah co-founded an education nonprofit determined to succeed with actor and activist, one of my favorites, Hank Azaria. And Sarah and Hank worked together for over a decade. And now, of course, she is at the Kevin Love Fund. And so I want to say hello and welcome both of them.
Hi, guys.
So
Hi,
Sarah's in
We're
the
so
middle,
honored
Ellie's
to
on
be
the
here.
side. So good to see both of you. I thought we would begin tonight by turning to both of you and hearing a little more of your stories and how you each came to the Kevin Love Fund. So maybe we'll start with Ellie.
Sure. I was a high school English teacher, as you mentioned in your reading of my bio. And I really saw in my classroom that, my students were coming into school with some really heavy stories, difficult things that they had been through in their life that they had not ever shared with anyone, that they felt like they had to kind of sweep under the rug. Stories of loss and grief and anxiety and just lots of the things that are part of the human experience. And so I started encouraging my students to write about what they were feeling and also sharing my own writing with my students. And I was so away by what I was seeing. I was like, gosh, this needs to be in every school. This is life changing. So I thought I need to prove how important this is. So I left my teaching position and I went to get a PhD at the University of Colorado Boulder. And I studied with a woman named Elizabeth Dutro, who had been studying teacher vulnerability, which was she sort of was on the cutting edge of looking at that. I joined her and I finished my PhD and was able to kind of explore that myself in that work. And when I completed that program, I had the great opportunity to take some of that research, and it's one of the threads that we wove into a tapestry that is the curriculum that we built for the Kevin Love Fund.
Oh, amazing. Sarah, how about you?
Well, like Ellie, I kind of experienced how having a trusted adult go first and modeling vulnerability would have such a deep impact on students. So I too was a classroom teacher originally, and I was a fifth grade teacher before the first nonprofit that I founded. And I saw that some of these students, like you mentioned in the bio, from they were being bussed in across Los Angeles from all different areas, and they weren't learning. And I realized they didn't feel safe in the classroom. And what had to happen first was they had to trust the educator who was teaching them the material, and also realize that everyone is going through something. And so I brought in my own journal and kind of shared a little age appropriate story with them, and then handed each student like a black and white composition book, and explained that I wanted them to start sharing their feelings. So Ellie and I together were kind of like the perfect team. We came together with Kevin and with psychiatrists from Stanford University and several folks in the UCLA Department of Psychology. And we kind of all came to the table and discussed what we felt should be in the drinking water for middle schoolers, high schoolers, and college students around the country, of what kind of learning we felt was essential in the social emotional realm. We often talked about, as we were creating the curriculum, there's mandatory learning with the periodic table of elements or historic facts or mathematical equations, but teens don't know anything about cognitive behavioral therapy, or that they all are going through different psychosocial stages of development. And so we put these little psychology nuggets into a curriculum that we have found has really helped students feel less alone, and that emotion is invited in the classroom.
So that's been your primary focus. The two of you have developed this curriculum for schools, right?
Yes, for schools,
and
for
also
after school
teacher
programs.
trainings.
hmm
And in reading about the curriculum and in talking with you noted that the one of the main goals of the curriculum is for teachers and adults to model vulnerability for kids. What does that mean? Wanna,
So in the
Ellie?
training, we in the training we teach the teachers that, they got the message at some point. We all did got the message that schools are a place for thinking, but that our feelings have to be kind of checked at the door. Or we Kevin talks about how feelings get sent down the hallway to maybe the
Right.
counselor's room or the social worker's room, and they play such an important role. Thank goodness they're there. But what we know is that the educator is capable of also being a person that can welcome and invite those emotions into the classroom. But the way to do it is that they have to show students that the emotions are welcome. And so they have to kind of be the change they want to see in their classroom by going first, as Sarah described doing with her students too. So bringing in their own writing, bringing in their own creative projects. And we help the teachers learn what kinds of stories they can share with their students that are age appropriate. And then we really
Right.
encourage them, each time they introduce the creative activity, do it by sharing an example from your own life.
It seems almost against what teachers are taught, right? To hold, we're almost taught to be private, to hold our inner feelings inside of us, to not let our students know the struggles that we go through. So how do you begin to encourage teachers to be comfortable actually speaking about this, Sarah?
Well, Ellie might want to piggyback on this, but what I would say is we did kind of butt up against that issue several times where not only teachers, but we work with national nonprofits where some of the educators that are delivering the curriculum are clinicians. And so they've really been trained not to share personal stories. So we talk about this concept of it's age appropriate, it's intentional. Our curriculum has guest artists and expert videos that come along with each of the lesson plans so that there's kind of a model of how to appropriately be vulnerable and share with students depending on the age. And like Ellie mentioned, we
Right.
have a training where we go through this pretty carefully. The training is just an hour, but then we offer ongoing coaching and support.
Yeah.
And I just
Ellie?
want to add that for Kevin, it was really
Yeah.
important that the training was free and the curriculum is free. So it was kind of his
Right.
mission to make sure there were barriers, to remove any barriers from this. But part of what we can do is if a middle school is delivering the curriculum, we'll work with them in how to share and what to share, what videos to choose from our lesson plans and what story they might want to share and how in depth. And then that would be different than college campuses.
And Sarah, you were also noting that this is a supplementary curriculum too. So, because most public schools these days have their own, social emotional learning curriculum already. So
Yes.
this is meant to be in addition to that, right? Or it can be.
Yes, and I think like the success is our flexibility. So we're in our launch
Yeah.
year now. We're in over 300 schools. Over
Right.
10,000 students are having this delivered. But this can fit. These are like 45-minute lesson plans that can fit anywhere in the school day in lots of different ways.
Yeah. 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 Ellie, you want to add something or?
Well, I just was gonna say, it's you pointed out something, which is that, it requires a lot of courage to
Yeah.
kind of take the thing that we think we should keep, hidden and share it. It does take a lot of bravery and courage. But what we found in the training is that when we do kind of a demo where we model it, Sarah and I go first, and when we
Right.
show them what happens in the room, Sarah always describes it so beautifully. It changes the space or the energy of the room, And then everyone kind of breathes a sigh of relief. They're like, oh, thank God. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not alone. I'm not the only one. And Rabbi, I have to say how inspired I am by you and the work that you've done. I think, I shared that with you earlier, but I want to share it on camera too, because I feel like the work that you're doing in your space is really similar to what we see teachers learning how to do, but it does take a lot of courage, and someone has to kind of
Yeah.
go first and take that risk. Sarah, did you want to add on to that? I wanted to paint the picture of what those trainings are like.
No, I think
Yeah.
that's
Well,
beautiful. We found these. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Please tell me about the trainings first.
I was going to say, we've
I'll
just
hold on.
found that these trainings, this curriculum is not in any way meant to be therapy, but we've heard repeatedly how therapeutic these trainings are,
Sure.
because it gives teachers, especially after getting through the past few years, like the reason why your task force was created, I think, is so many people are concerned about the well-being of their children or their loved
Yeah.
ones. And we found how therapeutic, like Ellie is describing, the sharing of a difficult, challenging story can be with a group of peers or a group of students.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, Brene Brown talks about, vulnerability being a means of connection, and especially following the pandemic and the disconnection that it sort of bred, just how deeply important it is to create avenues of connecting kids to one another and to their teachers. I've always found it incredibly difficult with with young people to get them to open up, to get them to speak about their feelings. Um, so, what is it that the curriculum does? What is it that you've seen um, that inspires young kids to to be able to actually access their own emotions in a public setting, not just alone with the teacher by themselves. This is with their classmates, right?
Such a good
Well,
question. Who do you want to answer? We'll say the same thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was supposed to
just
say your
say,
name before. So I don't, yeah, whoever wants to take it, I can say one of your names, but
Let's let
I'll say
Ellie
with Sarah.
go first this time.
Yes.
it,
Okay.
I'm just
Ellie.
going to say what Sarah say, which is, when we designed the curriculum, our goal was engagement. We wanted to design it in a way that it wouldn't feel like, oh, this is homework, or, boring, or that they would roll their eyes, that it's too saccharine or something, because there's kind of a stereotype about those SEL. But so we did that in a few different ways. One way we did it was by making it project based, hands on. Students make things, multimodal art projects, which they want to do. They want to go outside and take pictures with their iPhone to describe the feelings that they're experiencing that day. They want to choose a song for their music playlist that speaks to how they're feeling. So we made the activities really engaging, and then we also have video clips from celebrities and artists and athletes that students will recognize, where in the video clip, vulnerability is also being modeled. So these celebrities are normalizing talking about feelings, and I think that those two avenues together help students to feel motivated intrinsically to want to participate. Is that what you were going to say, Sarah? Probably.
Yes, that is exactly what I was going to say. I can add that the celebrities that we have, Rabbi, I know you're a sports fan. Kevin obviously has several videos where he's speaking directly to the students in our curriculum. Chris Paul did a video in a random act of kindness video that we have. We have Bryan Cranston filmed a video about his inner critical voice. So for students, I guess, teenagers that have watched Breaking Bad, they'd know Bryan Cranston, and certainly all the
I
adults.
love it. I
All the
love it.
adults in your
Yes.
congregation. And Lin-Manuel Miranda has filmed something. And we have a lot of teenagers. So we have a lot of high school students filmed sharing their own stories and what they struggle with. Because we got a lot of feedback from educators and school counselors that the kids, when they showed this curriculum and taught these lessons, the students wanted to hear more teenage stories. And so we were very careful to kind of have sent descriptors of each video. We have this very diverse, I think, video bank now, where hopefully whoever is delivering the curriculum can find a video that represents the students in their classroom anywhere in the country and can share a story that they feel will resonate with their students.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I'm just thinking about just the power of a room of, first of all, hearing certainly from celebrities and people that we see in public life, from Kevin to other athletes to people in TV shows we watch, to see them speaking about their own feelings and to speaking about internal, things going on in them, that it is just incredibly powerful and it creates kind of an energy. Um, we've done in our congregation something called house meetings, where we bring a group of congregants together and they share stories about things that are sort of burning in their hearts. The only rule for these house meetings has been that no fixing can take place. So nobody
Amazing.
after they speak can actually say, well, I've got somebody who can help with that. Instead, it just promotes listening. And the
Mm.
power of hearing somebody speak and be vulnerable without the necessity of having to fix them is something that I think is needed, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. And I think similar to our training a little bit, Ellie kind of always shares the idea of listening and witnessing. She shares a really
Yeah.
beautiful, her most difficult story, and it sometimes brings people to tears. It definitely, like I said, changes the energy. And she always
Yeah.
says, "Thank you for witnessing my hardest thing." And so
Mhm.
we talk about that in our
Yeah.
training as well.
Right.
I
Right.
wish I
The
could
power
come
of
It's
to
really
voice.
those
incredible. Yeah, it's really incredible.
We need to do them again.
Yeah, I
amazing.
mean,
That's amazing.
your
Yeah.
congregation and our foundation have so much synergy, so many aligned missions. It's
Yeah.
really an honor for us to get to be with you
Yeah.
all today.
Well, do you think so? Can just focusing a little bit on our world today, where kids are today. Um, the last since 2019, since February 2019, of course, the world changed forever. Kids were affected, as we read about every day, as we see in our classrooms. Right, we see the difference with our kids. Their behavior is different. They're still behind socially. There's more behavior problems in the classroom. There's less of an ability of kids to empathize with each other. Um, do you think that it, beyond this curriculum, what is happening in our world to combat this? Do we have a reason to hope that our kids will come out of this, that we won't be so disconnected from each other, that our kids will have healthy ways of dealing with their own inner turmoils? Or is this curriculum our only hope? You know?
I mean,
Ellie,
I
you want
think,
to go
when
first?
I was going to say, when you were talking about how you have these meetings with your group and there's this impulse, we all feel that impulse of like, ooh, I want to fix it in myself too, like that desire to run away from a feeling, like get better, feel better fast. We were just meeting with our youth council last night, which is a group of young people, and we were talking about that urge to try to like, you know, cover up how we feel instead of just being a witness to ourselves. And what I'll say from last night, meeting with this group yesterday, we asked them all to do a free write. And then we said, let's all go around and talk about what we wrote about. And the level of self awareness that these students had. Now, granted, these are students that are interested in mental health, but what they
Sure.
illustrated is what's possible for every student. And I think what's happening right now is the need. It's an unfortunate truth, but we all saw the great need. And so I think a lot of schools have started to make big changes towards inviting students to explore and become self-aware about their emotions. So I think, the school culture is going to continue to change, and I feel really hopeful because the students, as soon as the school opens up that door, the students are ready to rise to the occasion. That's what we've seen in our work with schools. The students can absolutely meet that as soon as the invitation is there.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Is that
Sarah,
what you would say
the,
you've seen too?
Yes, I totally agree. And I would just say Ellie and I are in a hopeful place because although
yeah.
a lot of organizations reach out to us after a crisis, whether it's in response to a school shooting or a response to a suicide, or what we've seen is it's obviously not just our curriculum. Look at all the work you're doing, and it's
Yeah.
not just your work. So many organizations are doing so much work now, and it's a more the merrier field. And so there's so many different ways. We partner with so many different organizations that are doing similar work, and we're being brought in for mental health weeks, for summits,
Yeah.
for mental health days to help design activities. So many people are reaching out, and we're lucky that Kevin is kind of the face of our organization because he brings in a lot of interest, but there's so many great
Yeah.
organizations doing this work. It does feel, I think, really positive and hopeful.
One of the challenges when I opened up and I started to tell my story, I was hearing from all these people. They were all telling me their own stories, but one of the things they were telling me was how broken our mental health system is and how difficult it is to find help. And when you do find help, how expensive it is, right? So that it's impossible to pay for somebody without any means.
Yeah.
What I find really moving about the work that you're doing is it's preventive in nature, right? It's meant to give young people the kind of skills where they're not in those crisis moments. And I do believe that it reduces the amount of crisis moments to teach kids how to speak and how to listen and to open up about how they're feeling. But I have to say, it put me in a very tough spot because I didn't know what to say to people. They couldn't find help.
Yeah, I mean, I will just share one anecdote. When we did our pilot program, we worked with some students that are in like higher socioeconomic independent schools, and then we worked with some
Yeah.
kids that were in much lower socioeconomic schools. And what Ellie and I were noticing is the kids that were more privileged had the chance to work with private therapists, and they knew what cognitive distortions were. And one of the
Right.
things that
Right.
Kevin felt so passionate about was access. So one of the things that we have are these expert videos. Now, clearly this doesn't fix a very broken system and a very overwhelming problem, but we have these psychiatrists and psychologists that film these 5 to 7 minute mini lessons teaching about cognitive distortion and so
Wow.
that is one thing that we always try to have. We can't force the teachers or athletic directors or coaches to play these videos, but we highlight them in our lessons and suggest them so that everyone is getting from the top experts in the world who are famous in their field the way they would talk to their own private clients. And so I would say we feel proud of that, but you're
That's
right, it is
amazing.
overwhelming. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are worried that if you start to invite these difficult stories into the classroom, you won't be able to close it, like it's like a Pandora's box. And Ellie always shares so beautifully that they'll say it's risky. And she says, well, it's already in the classroom, so it's risky not to talk about it.
Of course. Of course.
And the
Yeah.
other thing I was
Allie?
going to add on, Sarah used that word witnessing earlier. And I think, educators are obviously not going to have the capacity or the training to be therapists. Clearly, that's not their role. But what we know from the research, we did a 10-year study with more than 100 teachers. And what we saw from that research was that educators are capable of being witnesses for their students. And for some students, just that presence, somebody hearing you and saying, I'm so sorry that that happened to you, or I'm here for you. And we also know from the research, if a student feels like they have a one connection with one trusted adult, that can
One
be a
trusted adult.
life-saving thing.
Right.
So,
Right.
obviously it won't fill the broken system. We need to fix that
Right.
and make mental health access much more democratized across the system.
Right.
But educators can fill some of that need.
Right. And you're not relying anymore on the one great teacher who already had this inside of them to be able to do this, right?
Right.
Your point is we can train teachers to be like this and to have those skills to truly model vulnerability. Well, as sort of a last follow-up, where's the curriculum going? What's next?
Well, I can just say if you want to,
Yes, Sarah.
the curriculum. Sorry, you have to be trained, obviously, to see the curriculum. But if you on
Yep.
kevinlovefund.org, you can reach out to us, and we are happy to set up meetings with any school that's interested. Really, anyone that's
Amazing.
interested. We have general drop-ins and personal meetings. We are adapting the curriculum for elementary school. We're working to obviously expand the number of schools that we're in. We're over 300 now, but we have a new initiative in New York and Massachusetts that we're working to add a lot of schools in those two states. And we are able to add more because of generous, donations. And so we're
And let me
growing.
say, yes,
Mhm.
how can our congregants and those who are watching right now make donations to the work that you're doing? Right on the site?
Yes, you could do it
Yep.
directly on the site, and you can reach out
Okay.
to us through there. There's website submissions. We'll get back to you right away. And anybody that's interested, if you're a parent and have a teen that has, that cares about being a mental health ambassador for their school or community program, we can bring the curriculum to that school. So through these kinds of events, we meet tons of new schools. And also we're developing a digital platform where teachers and students can come on and share their work and their stories. So that's another way we'll kind of expand as well.
Yeah, I froze there, so I missed it at the end. But I heard you have the digital platform, right?
Yes, that's
Really.
one of the expansion activities that are happening. And always there's new lessons and videos coming in.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank both of you so much for coming tonight and speaking to us and inspiring us about incredibly important work, reminding us the importance of witnessing and the importance of opening up and creating avenues for our kids to open up as well. It's really, really powerful God's work that you are doing. So thank you. I also want to thank, by the way, Melissa Bernstein. She actually came on. I saw her on camera. So she was here. So she made it. So I can't say she didn't. And I want to thank Karen as well. We will be in touch very shortly about our next program. In the meantime, again, I want to thank Sarah, Ellie. I want to thank you guys so much. And we will see you soon. Please, I will send out some information about the organization and where to donate as well. Thanks, guys.
Thank you
Thank
so much for having us.
you.